Last week, the United States government's credit was downgraded by one of the major rating agencies. So what does it mean? Should we take it seriously? And how might it affect you? Find out on this edition of the Video Market Update. So for only the second time in history, the United States credit has been downgraded by one of the three major private credit rating agencies. This time it was done by Fitch. Now you might remember that in 2011, which was the first time in history that our credit was downgraded. The difference was in 2011, we were in the middle of this debt ceiling fight, and we're on the brink of defaulting on our debt for the first time in history. And as you can see on this chart, this is a representation of the S&P 500 for 2011. At one point, the market was up about 8%. After the announcement of the downgrade, the stock market went down 12% and then ended the year essentially flat. But you can see here, here's the spot where we were downgraded, here was the decline, and then eventually we ran back up, but essentially finished flat. But the catalyst to that downgrade was a brinksmanship in Washington of, are we going to pay our debts, yes or no? This time, which is the second time in history, our credit rating was dropped, not because there was one singular event or something that had happened. In fact, we had a debt ceiling debate a few months ago, and the credit rating agencies didn't do anything with that point at where our credit was standing. But Fitch has decided, after doing a review, that we have, as a country, too much debt. And that is the reason for their downgrade and their negative outlook. So let's look back. In the 8 years of the Obama administration, the federal government added $8.6 trillion of debt. In the 4 years of the Trump administration, they added almost $8 trillion. That was in 4 years, and you'd say COVID and some other things, but still, the debt is the debt. And in 2 years of our current administration, they have added almost $7 trillion in 2 years. So give them another 2 years and another election to come where government tends to spend a lot of money when elections are on the line. They're gonna blow that number out of the water. We're currently at $31 trillion of debt. And although we all know that's not sustainable, we all know at some point that our number one expenditure in the federal government will not be military, will not be Social Security, will not be education or healthcare. It will be interest on the debt. You and I know if we ran our household that way, our business that way, it wouldn't be able to be sustainable, right? We'd foreclose, we'd go bankrupt, we'd close our business. The government just prints more money. But finally, someone has come out and said, this is unsustainable and it needs to stop. Now, if you were a cynic, you'd say, isn't this the same rating agency that told us in 2005 and 6 that all these investments and these collateralized bonds and all this stuff were A+++ and they turned out to be garbage? You would be correct. But just because they missed the boat on that does not mean they're missing the boat on this. So the big question is, what does it mean? So Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase and one of the most well thought of and listened to people in finance, said that this is, quote, ridiculous. You've seen the market have about a 2% decline since the announcement, which I think is an overreaction. This announcement of the downgrade doesn't affect really anything, but what it does highlight is the need for us to get our financial house in order. But are we going to do it this year or next year or the year to come? Probably not. So it shouldn't affect directly stock prices, right? It shouldn't directly affect company earnings. It doesn't affect interest rates for you or your credit. But what it is a big giant warning sign that at some point Washington has to take this seriously, because if they don't, then that's when it will affect you, when they start making cuts to programs, they start raising taxes substantially, not just on the super wealthy, but on everybody. So just an update. I know a lot of people saw that and had questions of what does it mean. I just wanted to touch on the rating decline for last week. If you have any questions on this or anything you're seeing in the market, let me know. If not, as always, I hope you make it a great week.